Today we're going to look at making piecewise functions continuous and finding the limits in piecewise functions. So for these first few examples, we're going to find the value of a and b to make f of x continuous. Okay. So in order for this piecewise function to be continuous, where we would have discontinuity is at the break in the graph, which would be at -1. So in order to make this continuous, whatever number we get here has to equal the same number we'd get here. So what we do is we take the first equation and set it equal to the second equation at the x value from the inequality. So at x equals -1. And then we'll just plug in a -1 and solve. So that'll be a -1 squared plus 3a equals 1 minus a -x, so that'll be plus x. So I'm going to square the -1, that'll be +1, then make it negative, add the 1, and then divide by 3 to get a equals 1. So for this next one, where we're going to have discontinuity, or where we could have discontinuity, would be at 0. Okay. So I'm going to take the top equation, set it equal to the bottom equation, okay. And then it would have to be at x equals 0 for them to be continuous. So I'm going to plug in a 0 for all my x's. So that would be 2a times 0 plus 1 equals the square root of 0 squared minus a. Well, over here, 0 times anything is just going to be 0. So that'll be a 1 equals, this will be 0 minus a. So square root of -a. Then since the a is in the square root, to get rid of the root, I would need to square both sides. So 1 squared is 1. Squaring a square root just gets rid of the root and leaves us with what's inside. Okay, so we're not squaring the a, or the -a as well. Okay, squaring a square root just gets rid of the square root, and then we would divide by -1 to get a equals -1. So now we have a 3-part piecewise function. So what we're going to do is what we just did, but we're going to do it with the top 2 equations and plug in -2, and then we're going to do it with the bottom 2 equations and plug in +2. Okay, so you just plug in the number that the 2 equations share. So for the first one, I'll have 2x plus 3 equals 2a x squared plus b. And what I'm going to plug in here is -2. So these two have to be equal at x equals -2, because that's what they share in the inequality. And then I'm going to take the bottom 2 equations, set them equal to each other. So they're going to have to be equal at x equals 2 to make them continuous. So over here I'm going to plug in -2 for all my x's. So 2 times -2 would be -4 plus 3. Over here I would have -2 squared, which is 4, times 2. That's going to make it 8a plus b. I'm going to combine like terms over here. Okay. And then I can't solve this one yet because it has 2 variables. So what we're going to have to do is solve a system. So we're going to have to get a second equation over here. So now I'm going to plug in 2. So 2 squared is 4, times this 2 would be 8. So this is going to give me 8a plus b. Here when I plug in 2, that'll give me 3 times 2, so 6a minus 1. Now when you have multiple variables, you want to get all of your variables on the same side. So I'm going to subtract the 6a. And so that'll give me 2a plus b equals -1. Then to solve this, we're going to have to do elimination. Okay, so you can eliminate either the A's or the B's. It doesn't matter. So I'm going to just take this equation here. I'm going to rewrite it. I like to have the variables on the left side. So if this one is a positive B, I need this one to be a negative B, so I'm going to multiply through by -1. So that'll give me -2A minus B equals 1. Then the B's will cancel out. Add those together, that gives me 6A. Add these together, that gives me 0. Divide by 6, and A is going to be 0 divided by 6, which is just 0. Then to get B, you can go back to either equation. I'm just going to pick this one because it's smaller numbers. So I would do 2A, so 2 times 0 that I just got, plus B equals -1. So this part will just be 0. So 0 plus B is just B. So we'll get B equals -1. Now let's go ahead and look at one more with the 3 parts. Okay. So the top 2 equations, they share the -3 in the inequality. So that means x squared plus 1 has to equal bx minus 2a at -3. Okay. Then the second 2 equations, they are going to have to be equal at x equals 1. So I'm going to plug a -3 in here, so -3 squared is 9, so that's 9 plus 1. This would be b times -3, so -3b minus 2a, and then I'm just going to simplify. So that'll give me 10 equals -3b minus 2a. Okay. Then the second set, I'm plugging in 1 for all of my x's, so that's b times 1 minus 2a. Then here I would have 2a times 1, so 2a plus 3b times 1 is just 3b. Okay. Then I'm going to move all my variables to the same side. I'm going to move them to the left just to keep it all positive. So if I subtract b, that'll give me 2b. When I add this 2a to this 2a, that'll be 4a. Now I'm going to have to do elimination with these 2 equations. Okay. I am going to eliminate the a's because since this is 4a, I just need this one to be a -4a. So I can take this equation and multiply it through by 2. So I have 0 equals 4a plus 2b. That's this equation. Okay. This one will give me 20 equals, this will be a -6b minus 4a. I'm just going to rewrite it with the a first. So that'll be -4a, -6b. Then I can cancel the a's, and I get 20 equals -4b. Divide by -4, and I'll get b equals -5. Then I'm going to come back to this equation because it looks easier to me than this one, and I'm going to plug in a -5 for b. So 2 times -5, -10. Then move the 10 over and divide by 4. So 10 over 4 will reduce to 5 over 2.